I'm Frank Vaughn. It's July 12th, 2025, and one of the things I've observed about not having long hair is that I get bouffant hair. If I shower and I wrestle around with the kids or I do anything that involves ruffling up my hair, it just turns into this big puffy mess. I never had bad hair days when I had long hair. I also think I cracked my ribs yesterday. I was pushing my son around on his four-wheeled tractor. I was having a good time. I was starting to have a good time just like a kid, smiling, laughing, carrying on. And then the tractor bucket dug into the ground, and I went head first. And I came down. I missed my shoulder and managed to somehow come down on my ribs. And I got to tell you, the entire right side of my rib cage feels terrible. And on that theme of terrible, let's begin with today's news. We have Bongino, who is the deputy director of the FBI, and rumor has it Kash Patel himself threatening to resign over Pam Bondi's handling of the Jeff Epstein file. Now, anybody who's honest knows that Jeffrey Epstein had an extensive client list and knows that this is all bollocks. And you can tell the difference between those who are honestly intended. This is one of those moments in time where anybody that's accepting the official line from the Trump administration is compromised in some way. Either their morality is compromised or they are directly compromised by what's going on. But the Ben Shapiros of the world and all the multi-million subscriber influencers who are just trying to bury this thing, you know who they are now. Bongino, if he cares to maintain his reputation at all, doesn't really have a choice. He's going to have to leave. I made a tweet this morning, and this isn't just my allegation. This is according to Rasmussen Reports, a polling house that Trump himself loves to talk about for their accuracy, at least when they show with their accurate polling, some of the most accurate polling that is done in America on what the public thinks, presidential approvals, heading into the election. Super accurate. Rasmussen, I can't say enough good things about Rasmussen Reports. And according to Rasmussen, more Americans believe in UFOs and space aliens than believe that Epstein actually committed suicide. 80+% of Americans believe he was murdered. What else Rasmussen is showing is that Trump's approval numbers are tanking. He's now at net -2. Most of that loss is with independents, where he won the election. But for a man who won the election on 2 percentage points, this should be of concern. And the underlying reason is that most Americans, and indeed most decent people in the world, think that children being sold into sexual slavery to the world's most powerful people is unacceptable. And the issue here isn't, in my mind, the resistance to releasing the client list. And full disclosure, we don't need that. The Justice Department, along with the Trump administration, is saying we aren't even going to investigate any further. And the excuse that Trump is laying out is that these videos contained all of this explicit material that the American public doesn't need to see. We don't need to see it for there to be an investigation. It's a lie. It's a cover-up. It's a myth. And I don't think it's going away, and it shouldn't go away. Ken Klippenstein, Jeffrey Epstein had 1,000+ victims, industrial scale, abuse enterprise, far larger than previously believed, is revealed in new document. And this little quip here is Trump getting offended that people are still asking about this. It's important. It's reprehensible that the people who are paying for these services, it's very difficult for me to choose my words appropriately here and remain decent myself. I've got little kids. My little kids are going to turn into teenagers one day. This stuff is sick. These people are walking free. No one's been charged. It's disgusting. Trump should be ashamed. The administration should be ashamed. And anybody in MAGA who's making excuses for this should really give their heads a shake, including the Ben Shapiros of the world. Damn them all to hell. Because this is what you're covering up. The names of hundreds, and now indeed possibly thousands of Johns involved, Jeffrey Epstein's clients, have never been revealed by the government. Pam Bondi's Justice Department evidently doesn't have the stomach or the inclination to delve much deeper into the matter. That's the real issue here. It's the lack of investigation. It's not the fact that they didn't release the client list, it's that they're shutting the whole thing down. The new figure of over 1,000 victims appears in a Trump administration's review of FBI holdings concerning Epstein, a summary of which was released in the form of a 2-page memo earlier this week, contradicting everything the administration is saying. Jeffrey Epstein indictment 2019 says dozens of victims, and here it is, as set forth herein, over the course of many years, Jeffrey Epstein, the defendant, sexually exploited and abused dozens of minor girls at his homes in Manhattan, New York, Palm Beach, Florida, among other locations. An Epstein review in 2025 says over 1,000 victims. Consistent with prior disclosures, this review confirmed that Epstein harmed over 1,000 victims. Each suffered unique trauma, to say the least, not just in the moment, but for a lifetime. Scarring and baggage that you're never going to put down. Sensitive information relating to these victims is intertwined throughout the materials. This includes specific details such as victim names and likenesses, physical descriptions, places of birth, associates, and employment history. Can you imagine a scenario where there's a binder with pictures and images and biographies that the world's elite flip through, just like you would a menu, picking their victims? And this is what Bondi and Trump is covering up? There are people in my comments section that are just like, oh, remember what Q said all those years ago? That anonymous poster? Ignoring everything that Q got wrong. Alluding to this trust the plan narrative. Trust Trump. Put your faith in Trump. God always wins. I hate that. I hate when that quote comes out. God is in control. Trust God. But they're talking about Trump as though Trump and God are inextricably intertwined. It is so blasphemous. This speaks on its own. There is no client list. Justice says in its memo, this despite Bondi herself implying in February that list was on her desk. They're covering up industrial scale abuse. Everybody should be asking why. We've had cause this week to talk about Germany quite a bit, historic Germany, but we should also talk about modern day Germany because there's a secret that we can glean from this week's news coming out of Germany. But first, let's build the context. Germany, Berlin sees 1,059% increase in Indian immigration in 10 years. Did you know new migrants to Germany are 62 times, not percent, times, more likely to commit crime than the background population of native-born Germans? That the chaos that's been unleashed in Germany is largely due to the explosion in immigration? Not just from India, but also from the Arab world. Germany. Youth gang terrorizes small town. Vigilante patrol group forms to protect children. When the German state fails to protect youth, some citizens are taking defense in their own hand, even as the police warn against such an action. If the police are telling you that you have nothing but the right to be victimized, that's an unlawful order. Nobody should stand down when their children are being terrorized. It's not a youth gang. It's a migrant gang. Because German youth that were born there, who are raised and steeped in German culture and tradition, don't do this. Germany, after 9 underage girls sexually abused by Syrians at swimming pools, CDU mayor points to the hot weather as an excuse, whitewashing the entire thing. Hot weather apparently makes men rape. It's disgusting. Whether it's hot weather or rising French fry prices, many excuses are given for sexual assault and violence at German swimming pools, none of which include that these behaviors are normalized in many parts of the world and even excused, especially against members outside of the culture group or the religious group. We can't identify real causes, so we make up BS. And hopefully the citizens are going to stop accepting it. German police raid 170 homes over hate speech and insults to politicians. So while these gangs roam the streets, while the children are being sexually abused, the German police are focused on insults to politicians and people saying unkind words, probably just telling the truth about the state of migrant violence in Germany. Government report reveals astronomical crime rates for young foreigners compared to German youth. Algerian youth in Germany commit 56 times more crime than Germany. So maybe I was wrong with my 62. I was referring to this. I knew I was going to come to it. So it's 56 times. I guess it's a little better. The suspect burden figure has been compiled by the Federal Criminal Police and published in the police crime statistics starting this year. This ratio shows the total number of identified suspects over the age of 8 and is calculated per 100,000 inhabitants of the population. It examines all crimes except for immigration law violations, and the data presents a concerning trend. For German suspects across all age groups, the TVBZ is 1878. In contrast, Syrian suspects have a TVBZ of 8,236, and Afghans are at 8,700. It's almost like the integration isn't happening. It's almost like the people who are getting the handouts from the German taxpayer, the people who are being imported en masse, have zero respect for the host country. That's what we're seeing. Now, this is where I mentioned the secret is. German state bans AfD members from civil service. Now, what is the AfD? The media likes to paint it as a far-right Nazi party. Couldn't be further from the truth. It's a big tent of various people, including new immigrants with brown skin pigment, who are identifying these problems. There are a lot of people that come from these nations who are trying to leave them behind. And they are very poorly represented by the things that we just highlighted. Now, the secret here is banning the AfD from the civil service. Now, this is admittedly only in one state. Rhineland-Palatinate requires candidate to submit a written declaration of loyalty to the Constitution and to state that they have been a member of an extremist organization in the last 5 years. And of course, the AfD, according to the establishment, which is letting all of this crime run rampant, according to them, the AfD is extremist. The key is, in socialist states, which includes every state in Europe and every state in North America, including the United States is a socialist state to one degree or another. Canada, Germany, France, Britain, they're all socialist states. The people you elect don't have anywhere near as much control as I've highlighted in Canada. It's even worse in Canada. Your parliamentarians are just rubber stampers. That's all they do. The whip controls everything. The government, which is appointed, controls everything, and the governor general has all the power. But there are similar circumstances that can be found all throughout Europe. The real power in many European nations lies in the bureaucracy, including Canada. The bureaucracy which you don't elect, the bureaucracy which is appointed, the bureaucracy which survives the governments you elect, the bureaucracy which many of the governments you elect are afraid to do anything about. So the reason that you would bar the AfD from the bureaucracy is you don't want them gaining that foothold in the real power center of German politics. Now, there are blessed few nations in Europe that are not subscribing to this new wokeism and this self-destruction. Poland is one of them. Poland to introduce border controls with Germany as migration crisis grows. Under massive pressure and accusations that Poland is turning into a failed state, Tusk is being forced to take actions at Poland's border. Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced the measure on Tuesday, stating, "We have decided that we are restoring temporary control of the border of Poland with Germany and Poland with Lithuania," adding that the Polish Ministry of the Interior Administration is currently preparing the necessary implementation of the law. He said the new border controls are designed to limit and reduce the uncontrolled flow of migrants back and forth. When the European Union was formed, the member states give up a great big chunk of their sovereignty to Brussels, this unelected bureaucracy. I don't know why Europe needed more bureaucracy, but in order to simplify things, they created a brand new bureaucracy, which, far from simplifying things, just began the real destruction of the nation states of Europe. But you know it's bad. Another nation that is heading in a different direction is Hungary, which is a pariah. There's been talk of kicking them out of the EU. They have single-handedly, at times, stood in the way of the European Union's desire to get more embroiled in the Ukraine war and to escalate things. Orban is one of those linchpins around which sanity might gather. With the Pride Parade banned, tensions with the EU will only increase for Hungary. Should Hungary pick its battles more and move ahead with what it thinks is right? This question also has to do with the upcoming Pride parades. Hungary has put an enormous amount of attention on their demographic problems, creating one of the most inviting tax structures for people who want to have children. Instead of trying to migrate their way out of their problems, they're trying to increase the birth rate to deal with their problems. And they're very concerned, much as China is, much as Saudi Arabia is, much as Russia is, the stronger nations in the world that actually have cultural and ethnic identities are very concerned with the rise of hedonism, as well as making sure that effeminate men don't become the norm. They want their men manly, they want their women feminine, and they implement policies to keep things that way. Meanwhile, in North America and Europe, I read a comment this morning, and I mean, you could say it's not true, but it rings true, that when Canadian soldiers are moving around on their bases, I was told that the barracks that they sleep in are rat-infested, and that when they're driving around on the base, when they drive over one of those rainbow crosswalks that I highlighted in yesterday's video, they're supposed to lift their feet in the vehicle. That's the instruction that they receive. What madness is this? Hedonism, this obsession with what part goes in what hole, this idea that copulation is the highest form of human freedom is destroying the foundations of civilization. Now, it's not to say that people can't live their life the way that they want to live their life. But the only evidence you need to see is as to how unhealthy this focus is, this singular amplification of a minority, an extreme sliver minority way of life over everything else. From one day to 1 week to 1 month, now it's an entire season. We got monuments built, we got crosswalks everywhere, flags, groups, special programs, government funding. It's killing the birth rate. It's encouraging materialism. It's encouraging hedonism. It's encouraging selfishness. And it's completely self-destructive. These other nations in the world, I mean, it's funny when Canada says we're going to look to China for a solution to counter Trump in the United States. We can't replace the Americans on trade, but it doesn't stop our politicians from pretending that we can, and they want to look to China. Well, if these politicians truly cared about the Rainbow Brigade and all the things that they talk about, they wouldn't be looking to China, which actively violates the human rights, not just of people in the Rainbow Club, but of men that look too effeminate. How can they suck and blow at the same time with such ease, with their body language ringing as though they speak truth, as though the contradiction isn't inherent in every single word that exits from their mouth? Every breath they breathe is a lie, it's a myth, it's a narrative. I personally couldn't do it. And speaking of migrant problems, MTO, that's the Ministry of Transportation in Ontario, orders truck drivers to retest for AZ license after audit finds irregularities at test provider. Due to irregularities discovered during an audit of your test provider, the Ministry of Transportation cannot verify that your AZ knowledge and road tests were conducted to Ontario standards. A ministry letter obtained by trucknews.com states to maintain their Class AZ license, MTO has ordered the drivers to complete a vision and knowledge test within 60 days of the date of the letter and a road test within 120 days. This will be conducted by the government. A picture says 1,000 words. Don't think I need to commentate on it. Ontario highways have become a death trap, particularly Highway 11 up north, and the only two corridors, actually, that connect this country together. There's only two roadways, and they actually join into one roadway, and there's one railroad, and that's the only thing that holds Canada together. People are dying almost daily. It's a risk to just take your family on the roads because we've got drivers who can't speak English, who can't read the road signs, who have got commercial vehicle licenses and are driving every single day. And there's a whole lot of truckers who are trying to raise this issue. They're poorly paid. A lot of them are just like we talk about with the TFW program when it comes to fast food joints that are owned mostly by foreign corporations who are making all kinds of money. With a new class of indentured servitude, these people are glorified slaves for all the problems of the TFW program and how it displaces Canadians. There is the other side of it, which is that these people are working long hours, are paid below minimum wage, and are constantly threatened with deportation if they step out of line or speak about it. All the while, the managers of these fast food, I was talking to somebody yesterday that told me that their grandson went to apply for a job and was told by a Sikh man in clear English, "We do not hire whites." This is happening all over the country. But for all of that, these people are being taken advantage to, and the only people who are making money are Mark Carney and his friends. This is how they make their money. TruckNews.com knows of at least 2 truck drivers who have received the letter. One of them, who got their license a year ago, has been working as a long-haul truck driver making trips to the U.S., according to a source who requested anonymity. The source, who owns and operates a truck driving school, said the 2 drivers approached the school to brush up their skills for the new road test. Now, I'm just going to go down to a comment. DCP should not exist. Massive conflict of interest to test the same people you're training. Testing should be independent of the training provider. You would think that's common sense, but what's actually happened, not just in Ontario, but in BC, is that the training schools often set up, often not speaking English. You can go online and you can look up videos advertising for these training schools, and they're speaking Punjabi. Their signage is written in Punjabi. The licensing has been outsourced. And so if you bring, and it's fascinating because CBC News Marketplace actually did a piece on this. They actually uncovered a little bit of it. If you bring enough money with you, they'll just kick you out of license. And then you're on the road driving an 18-wheeler at 100 kilometers an hour. And you can't even read road signs. My hope is that this doesn't turn into another cover-up and they just bury this. My hope is that this exposes, and this is something I'm going to watch, this exposes how little knowledge there actually is in the truck fleet and many of the drivers. Because every time a young family gets on the road to drive somewhere, they're risking their lives. The same thing, on the same day, there's attention coming out of the United States over the same issue because they have it too. American Truckers United issues dire warning on unsafe highways amid flood of migrant drivers and crashes. Shannon Everett of the trucking advocacy group American Truckers United has been one of the most outspoken folks about the Biden-Harris regime's role in the surge of migrant drivers with non-domiciled commercial driver's licenses. Different words, different qualifications, but the exact same problem. And you're seeing a picture of another crash that killed 5 and injured 11. ATU has confirmed that the driver behind today's horrific Austin, Texas crash, this is, and this goes back, but this is a daily occurrence. Barely spoke English. Experts say he was almost certainly a non-domicile CDL. At some point, we have got to start asking ourselves who we are and what we want to be. Do we want to just let our countries and our nations be completely destroyed so that the financial class can just keep making money, so that the investment class can just keep making money in Canada, so that we can stay a money laundering capital to the world, so that we can hide the mass scale of our drug trade right in plain sight with this notion of rendering legal all hard drugs? One of the things, and I've been critical of Donald Trump over the last several days, but when he talks about fentanyl in Canada, he's right. When we talk about methamphetamine, when we talk about heroin, when we talk about any of the raw materials that go into this stuff and the mass manufacture that's been going on in Canada, if there was no truth, because some people have said to me there's no truth about Trump's words about fentanyl, and they always go to seizure data, how much we intercept and the Americans intercept at the border. It's not the right metric. It's how much gets through. It's how much money is circulating in the black market. You have to derive your conclusions from a big basket of data. If there was no truth to Trump's allegations about fentanyl in Canada and drug trafficking in general, why did Trudeau appoint a fentanyl czar? And whatever happened to him? Why did he commit to 10,000 personnel for our border, which never happened? Why did they do all of these things? Now, admittedly, in the heat of all the different things that are going on in the Trump administration, it's kind of fallen off the radar for the last several months. I mean, he's off to bombing countries. He's covering up Jeffrey Epstein. He's trying to justify $5 trillion more in U.S. debt. MAGA's on the ropes. He's got a lot of distractions. Netanyahu's in Washington for a week. And while Netanyahu's there, all of these U-turns occur. He's sending arms to Ukraine, and even as he's using his presidential authority to issue more arms for Ukraine to keep the war going, the Senate is proposing a bill to take his power away to stop it. So Trump's been busy. Meanwhile, all of these promises that the Trudeau government made about fentanyl and the fentanyl czar and dealing with these problems have just kind of fallen off the radar. And I'll finish on that note. Where's Justin Trudeau? The only time we seen him was when the king was here. He showed up wearing funny shoes. I think we're going to find, if we're curious, that Justin Trudeau is probably extremely mentally unstable and unwell. And that we had a prime minister running this country who is in the midst of a severe mental episode, mental breakdown, with some serious narcissistic disorder and sociopathy. But where is he? Here we are, months after the election. There's no talk of building him a statue. There's no conversation about his legacy. There's no talk about what he did for the country. And if you think it's because he didn't do anything for the country, I mean, I agree with you. But that doesn't stop the big red machine from generating propaganda about how great their former leaders were. Mr. Trudeau is invisible. He's been disappeared. He was everything for a decade. And he's just gone. It kind of reminds me of how the pandemic, scamdemic, C-19, whatever you want to call it, how it occurred and it dominated everything for 2 years and human rights were squashed all over the place. The government forced everybody into a terrible experiment over nothing, and it too just disappeared. But at the same time, I mean, the Americans just, I should actually call that up, but I'm not going to. The Americans just approved the COVID-19 vaccination for kids 6 months and older. It's still on the schedule out there. No one's taken it, but we're still doing it. Isn't it crazy? In the age of information, where we have all the information at our fingertips, we have the internet, we have AI tools, all the knowledge that humanity has ever compiled is at your fingertips. There's people who say that you can't know anything. Right now, you still can. You still have the printed word, and the printed word backs up what's online. As long as that's the case, even if it's counter narrative, you can still figure out the truth. Governments and victors don't write history. That's an incorrect assumption. They write the narratives.